no one graduates college on time anymore. And that's not a complaint, because I'm one of those people. But before college, I was a little bit of a hyper control freak, nerdy vibe, and I would have never thought that I would become one of those people that doesn't graduate college on time. So I want to talk about that today. Sorry, I got distracted by murder. We're trying out different formats. So this is kind of podcast style, but like not really, because I'm not going to edit audio that much or post the audio on any podcast place. But it's kind of like what I see podcasts being these days. So what do I want to talk to you about? I want to talk to you about how and why I changed my idea of what my college path would be, why taking an untraditional path can be a great option, and how to decide if an untraditional college or career or life path or whatever is right for you. So I graduated high school in 2018, was set to graduate in 2022. Didn't take a gap year, nothing like that, never even crossed my mind, to be honest. I just was the type of person that wanted to go to college and was very excited for it. Freshman year was chill, I got a summer internship, went back to school in the fall, blah blah blah, that was fine, that was normal, that was cool. Then fast forward to my sophomore year of college, pandemic happened. I kind of just had to do what everyone else was doing, and I took online classes for that first spring. And then after that is when I had to really deal with the impacts that this situation would have on my college education and what decisions are within my power to make. And I was very much the type of person who wanted to control everything. This was very hard for me to like try to grasp and figure out. And I spent a lot of that summer thinking about potential options and like not actually crying, because I had a lot of goals in college. Going to college was a really big deal for me. I never had access to those types of resources, and I really wanted to have that in-person experience. So I spent a lot of the summer in meetings with deans trying to figure out all my options and prioritizing what my goals in college actually were and writing those down so that I could figure out how I can still achieve those while also dealing with the fact that I had no control over anything and the world was collapsing in front of me. So I kind of just kept those options in my back pocket, and I took classes for like 6 more months, 2 terms, 2 quarters, and eventually it got to the point where I was like, yo, if I take one more completely remote term, the majority of my engineering education will have been online. Gross. And it just seemed like everything was pointing to me stepping away for a little bit. There were no classes that I wanted to take. The ones I did want to take, I didn't get into, and so much stuff was happening that it just didn't seem like the path I should take. Just prior to this time, I was supposed to be studying abroad. Obviously, that got canceled. Travel was another thing that was really important for me to do in college, and it was one of those goals that I had, because I never got to do it growing up. My family just didn't have the resources for that. So I just decided that I would do it myself. I took the spring off and I traveled across the United States, one of the best things I've ever done in my life. It's vlogged on this channel if you want to watch. And when I decided that that was something I wanted to do, I met with people at my college and they walked me through the process of applying for a 5-year enrollment pattern. I had a lot of options, so I could either apply to just take a few additional periods off within 5 years and graduate within 5 years, but there was also the option of taking a leave of absence. At my college, every student was entitled to 1 leave of absence, and that could be for any period of time. It could be for 20 years, it could be for 2 months, whatever. But I ultimately decided that a 5-year plan would work best for me. And that decision not only allowed me to have that awesome spring term to travel across the United States, but it also allowed me to come back in the summer when things were finally getting back to normal and have all these in-person experiences. I got to live in a Greek house. I got to make so many new friends and get back like in the engineering lab and do all this stuff. And then senior year, I got to spend fully on campus. And because I had an extra summer, I got to go for one of those big fancy internships. I even got to study abroad my very last semester, term, whatever, of college. And the grounding in these decisions was that they would help me achieve my goals better than following the traditional path. And that was something that I had to step back and realize during the pandemic, when I realized that I didn't have control over anything in the world. I did have control over the decisions I made for my education. Some of my goals were graduate with 2 Ivy League degrees, walk with my class, study abroad. I think I wrote 50 different things on this big bucket list that I made when I was like 19, 20 years old. Figure out what I had to do to achieve all or most of those goals. Tried as best as I could to take that pressure off of myself to follow a traditional path, that this wasn't late, that's all arbitrary. There's no on time, early, late, whatever. Everyone has their own path. This was clearly what was going to be best for me, given what I wanted to accomplish in college. I took an untraditional path, and given the crazy world circumstances, I would do it again 10 times out of 10. But it could be a great option for you too, whether you're in college now or you're recent post-grad or you're in your 20s, 30s, whatever. That's what I've learned. Focusing back in on schools for a sec, there are a lot of pressures at elite institutions of higher education, especially to pursue certain degrees and career paths. These are pressures created by a system designed for elite career funneling that take advantage of financially insecure or just unsure 18, 19, 20-year-olds, whatever. And this could on its own be a whole other video, but when that's kind of just stuffed down our throats for years, it's easy to forget that there are other options. I can't tell you if that's something you should do, but I can speak from my personal experience and tell you about some people I know who have taken different paths. I know people who have taken a full year off to work just because it was the pandemic and they needed a break. I know other people who took a full year off just because they were unhappy. They were really unhappy at school, and they knew they had to take some time to work on themselves before they could fully invest in their education in this other part of their life. I know people that finished early. My boyfriend finished 2 terms early so that he could start graduate school early and play sports and stuff. I have friends who, instead of taking a term off of school to, get some big internship or whatever, have worked at summer camps or worked at scuba shops or worked on farms or all these really cool things that were super fulfilling for them, but also very different from the conventional summer internship plan. On the post-grad side of things, I know a lot of people who are taking gap years before medical or law school, which is actually becoming maybe the more normal thing to do, which is great. I'm basically on a gap year right now. I know other people that decided to jump right into a PhD. Right in. And they are so happy about that. Good for them. No masters, just right to PhD. Love it. I know many people who wanted to try something new and they just moved to a different country, doing a fellowship, teaching languages abroad, working in English-speaking offices abroad. And those are only some of the options. My examples are a little more travel biased because that's what I'm really into right now. But, there's volunteering, doing externships, which is when you do an internship that's not in your traditional field. It's trying something new. There's freelancing and starting a business, or, just taking the time to chase your dreams, whatever those are. And it can be really, really hard. I get it, to let go of pressures that we in society place on ourselves to follow certain paths and achieve certain things. And I'll tell you right now, the people that I know that have taken those untraditional paths have absolutely no regrets about it. That they have at least spoken to me. How do we figure out if an untraditional path is right for you? Something that was really helpful for me, at least, was outlining my personal goals without a specific timeline. I know that's something that a lot of motivational speakers will tell you to do, right? Is write down exactly what you're gonna do and when you're gonna do it, and do it. But some people like me, it's hard for me to think of really specific dreams or really specific goals outside of an academic setting. I'm still adjusting to life outside of an academic setting. So yeah, I could very easily do that at school, but in the real world, outside of that, there's not that much structure. We don't have that much control. So what we can do is we can set those goals so that while we're pursuing things and while we're making decisions for what's going to be best for us, we have those in mind and we can start to see the path there. And once we see the path there, then we can make those specific goals. But it can be very overwhelming to try to do that all at once. And again, I just have to reiterate the benefits of relinquishing control and being adaptable. Almost nothing is going to go exactly as planned. If it does, you're incredibly lucky. Learning to be okay with not having full control over a situation was one of the best lessons I've learned in life. And that comes from having patience and having trust and confidence in yourself and who you are and what you will achieve one day and every day. So if you're feeling unhappy, or if you don't see the path that you're currently on as the most fulfilling given your end goals, I encourage you to pursue new experiences, because the most traditional path is rarely the most interesting one. Just to recap, during the pandemic, I made a list of my personal goals, and over the next few years made decisions and adjusted my timeline to life and made decisions that would lead me to achieving those goals, even if it was in an untraditional way, which it was. Taking an untraditional path can be a great option for a lot of people. If you're struggling with feelings of success and fulfillment, that might be the move for you. And the first step in figuring out if that's the right move is thinking about where you're at now and where you want to be, and looking at the path you're on. Doesn't need to be changed. Don't be afraid of chasing your happiness. You're not bound to any timeline or expectations, as long as you trust in yourself and follow the law and stuff. And now to end with a quote that was given to me by ChatGPT when I described this video. The famous writer Paulo Coelho once said, "The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion." And that is why not graduating on time was the best decision of my life. I'm happy where I'm at in life now, and every decision that I've made has led me to here, so can't complain. I do have to quickly acknowledge that there is a lot of privilege in getting to make these decisions and having the opportunities and freedoms to make them. I don't come from a very privileged background. I did, however, go to a very privileged institution that gave me access to a lot of those freedoms and mobility. And I don't know if this is how, rich people, I don't know if this is how they've been living this whole time and they, just didn't tell us that. I have to go. But let me know if you enjoyed this style of video. It's different, but I feel like it's kind of just like we're hanging out, having a conversation. Hopefully you felt like that. Anyway, I'm Hannah. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like this video, all that. I will see you so soon. Bye.